The first question that I should ask you to do is explain to folks what you mean by this. Arguments for a colorblind America. What do you mean when you say that?
So a lot of people equate colorblindness to I don't see race or to pretending not to see race. I think that's a big mistake. We all see race, right? And we're all capable of being racially biased, so we should all be self-aware to that possibility. My argument is not for that. My argument is that we should try our very best to treat people without regard to race, both in our personal lives and our public policy.
Of course.
And the reason I wrote this book, thank you. The reason I wrote this book is because in the past 10 years, it has become very popular to, in the name of anti-racism, teach a kind of philosophy to our children and in general that says your race is everything. Right? And I think that is the wrong way to fight racism, and that's why I wrote this book at this time.
I'm sorry, baby.
Yeah.
Can I just point out that there is a reason for that? You know, when I went to school, getting any information about anyone's race was not taught. No history, there was no black history, none of those things were taught. And here in America, 100 years ago when I was a young woman, that's how people saw you. That's how they judged you. So I think, I don't want to say it's your youth, but I think you have a point, but I think you have to also take into consideration what people have lived through in order to understand why there has been such a pointing of very specific racial things, like women couldn't get into colleges. If you were a black person, there were a lot of colleges wouldn't accept you. Trying to equal the playing field. I think that's what a lot of folks have been trying to do. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think that's your experience, and that's valid. You know, as a counterpoint, when I was in 5th grade, we all watched Roots together in public school.
Yeah.
So these are different experiences. I think it's also different generations. It's different parts of the country, right? We have very different cultures all living together in one country. So I'm not going to deny that, but I view this notion of a colorblind society similar to the idea of a peaceful society, which is to say it's an ideal, it's a North Star. And the point is not that we're ever going to get there, we're not going to touch it, but we have to know when we're going forward and when we're going backwards. And we're going backwards when we're doing woke kindergarten in San Francisco, you know, with you didn't hear about this story?
No, but
wait, because I want to get to the part of the book. You believe that public policies that address socioeconomic differences would be better at benefiting disadvantaged groups, and that race-based policies often hurt the very people they're trying to help. What are some examples of policies that would be better at reducing racial disparities?
So my overall argument is that class, socioeconomics, is a better proxy for disadvantage. We all want to help the disadvantaged, and the question is, how do we identify them, right? The default right now in a lot of areas of policy is to use, you know, black and Hispanic identity as a proxy for disadvantage. And my argument is that you actually get a better picture of who needs help by looking at socioeconomics and income. That picks out people in a more accurate way.
Not my question, but when you say that socioeconomics picks out people in a better way than race, when you do look at the socioeconomics, you see the huge disparity between white households and black households. You see the huge disparity between white households and Hispanic households. So your argument, and I've read your book twice because I wanted to give it a chance, your argument that race has no place in that equation is really fundamentally flawed, in my opinion.
Well, there's two separate questions. One is whether each racial group is socioeconomically the same. That I agree with you. They're not.
They're not, and the stats show that.
Of course, I agree with that fully. The question is, how do you address that in the way that actually targets poverty the best?
Great.
And what Martin Luther King wrote in his book, Why We Can't Wait, is he called it, we need a Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged. And he said, yes, we should address racial inequality. Yes, we should address the legacy of slavery. But the way to do that is on the basis of class. And that will disproportionately target blacks and Hispanics because they're disproportionately poor, but it will be doing so in a way that also helps the white poor, in a way that addresses poverty as the thing to be addressed.
That part is true, but as you are a student of Dr. King, I'm not only a student of Dr. King, I know his daughter, Bernice, right? So I'm going to get to my question.
Go ahead, go right ahead.
I think the premise is fundamentally flawed. You claim that colorblindness was the goal of the civil rights movement, based upon Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, content of character versus the color of skin. Bernice, Dr. King's daughter, points out that 4 years after giving that speech, actually, Dr. King also said this: a society that has done something special against the Negro for hundreds of years must now do something special for Negroes. He also said in 1968, it was about less than a week before he was assassinated, this country never stops to realize that they owe a people kept in slavery for 244 years. So rather than class, he did write about that earlier on. Right before his death, he made the argument for racial equality and racial reparations. And so your argument for colorblindness, I think, is something that the right has co-opted. And so many in the Black community, if I'm being honest with you, because I want to be, believe that you are being used as a pawn by the right and that you're a charlatan of sorts.
He's not a Republican.
So how do you...
He's never voted for a Republican.
You've said that you're a conservative.
No.
No, you did. You actually said that in the podcast that you did 2 weeks ago.
I said I was a conservative.
Yes, you did. So, but my question to you is, how do you respond to those critics?
Okay, let him answer.
First thing I think it's very important. The quote that you just pointed out about doing something special for the Negro. That's from the book Why We Can't Wait that I just mentioned.
Yes.
A couple paragraphs later, he lays out exactly what that something special was, and it was the Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged, a broad class-based policy.
But he also says you must include race.
No, he didn't. He says it's
Yes, he does.
Okay, well, everyone should go read the book Why We Can't Wait. Let's not get sidetracked by that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been co-opted by anyone. I've only voted twice, both for Democrats. Although I'm an independent, I would vote for a Republican, probably a non-Trump Republican if they were compelling. I don't think there's any evidence I've been co-opted by anyone, and I think that's an ad hominem tactic people use to not address really the important conversations we're having here. And I think it's better, and it would be better for everyone if we stuck to the topics rather than make it about me with no evidence that I've been co-opted.
I want to give you the opportunity to respond to
I appreciate
the criticism.
I appreciate it. There's no evidence that I've been co-opted by anyone. I have an independent podcast. I work for CNN as an analyst. I write for the Free Press. I'm independent in all of these endeavors, and no one is paying me to say what I'm saying. I'm saying it because I feel it.
Yes. Alyssa.
Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Wood, Professor Carl, Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin, and we are here breaking down the brother Coleman Hughes and his views on race and racial politics, coming from his own thoughts and also his book, The End of Race Politics. We're getting into colorblindness, having a colorblind society. What is a colorblind society? What does it mean to have a colorblind society? And the ultimate question: is class more important than race, especially for Black people? Is class more important than race? So, PC, man, we'll start with you. What do you think overall about this clip and what the brother is getting into, talking about, racial politics?
Okay. I think racial politics is a very important conversation. So the fact that he's mentioning it and talking about it, I think is good for that part, because it's something we don't spend enough time on. And that's why fellow generations and generations that follow other generations, older generations, newer generations, seem to stumble upon the same mistakes that older generations made when they think that we can just wander into this raceless utopia. And in this particular utopian society, we can everybody can just erase all the bad feelings and start off at ground zero. And unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. And Whoopi Goldberg had made a very good point. You don't discount people's lived experiences when you bring things like this into when you bring topics like this to the forefront. And especially when you're 28 years old, you don't, and I'm not saying you can't learn this, no, but you haven't have enough lived experience to make that assertion that we can actually get to the point where we can bypass all the different things that happen across racial lines based on racial differences.
Oh, because he watched Roots in the 5th grade.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna get to that. That's definitely at the top of my notes. But it's just it's one of those things where I think black people don't have a problem throwing black people under the bus to get ahead personally on some bull. And that's what we see here, especially young blacks who this last generation, I guess he falls under Generation Z, is it? Or is he one of y'all?
Pat, didn't you say he was what, 28?
28?
Yeah, 28. He's a millennial.
We old millennials though.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the oldest of the new crop of millennials.
Okay. All right. So he's with y'all. All right. So yeah, man, this is just like they weren't brought up the same way we were to be race loyal. And so this new crop has not had their, you would have thought they had a couple watershed moments with all the publicity around racial black people, specifically black men, over the last, decade and a half. You would have thought that would be something that would, catch on. But, and I talk to young people all the time. They try to live in this place where they don't see color, which is wild to me, considering that when you talk about becoming a victim of it, a lot of, especially the young brothers, they recognize certain things that put them in danger. Now, this whole concept of class, first I'm going to talk about the one thing he was right about. He was right about the fact that racially, policies that's based on race has not served, that it doesn't serve black people. Right. He's right. But it's because the policy's never been based on race. When you start creating shit like people of color, when you have all these minorities and you have all these different terms, it's not racially based. When you consistently add people who are not black to this, to the benefits of so-called harms that were committed strictly towards blacks, then you water down what blacks are going to get. And then what typically happens is blacks get the crumbs, the crust, or the crumbs of whatever policy was supposed to be directed towards black. I mean, you can look at affirmative action. You can look at, the urban renewal contracts. You can look at, it's all austerity, in regards to how black people are the face of it, but black people never benefit from it. So he's right about that. But the problem is because it's never been racially based. When as soon as you identify something as racially based, the first people to get scared are black people in power, black people who are political or politicos, or black people who have money, because they're afraid that the faucet from white folk is going to get cut off.
And to be clear for those, when he's talking about racially based, he's talking about the overall outcomes didn't benefit black people like it was said to be. So
right, yeah, we were on the poster, but we weren't behind the poster. We didn't get what came with the poster.
The name was on it, but
Right. So he mentioned Roots as if it was some significant historical document. In fact, especially now what we know about Roots, that the shit wasn't even a real story, but it was a one freaking family.
See, you ain't recognizing that man's experience, bro. 5th grade, bro. Think about it. Think about what you was watching when you was in 5th grade, bro. You know what I'm saying? You weren't watching Roots, bro. He watched, bro. Roots was a groundbreaking movie that changed that man's life, bro. I'm just saying.
Why I wasn't watching in 5th grade? Because the shit was on TV. I didn't have to watch it in school.
I'm just saying though, bro. But the fact
didn't teach any black history when I was going to school. That was our problem.
Teachers who may have been black, white, or whatever, though, they show Roots, bro. So when you show, because think about what Roots are. Roots are connected, right? So bam, he connected now.
Yeah. So, and this whole concept around blacks and Latinos, Latino is not a race. And when Latinos typically have a chance to choose, they choose to be white Latinos, over 80%, rather than being Afro Latino. So you don't get to swing in when it comes to the benefits. Oh, I'm black now. You don't get to do that. You know, especially when it comes, because when you come to Latin benefits, they don't. I mean, you just had a controversy out in LA last year when the mayor and a couple members of city council were talking about, you know, how they're going to usurp the policies for black folk because, you know, they didn't think that they were angry that black people were getting benefits out there. They had a whole controversy out there. The mayor got investigated and several members of city council got investigated out there in Los Angeles over that last year. So, you know, when we start talking about class, trying to follow this class doctrine, that doesn't work either, because no matter what the class is, black people still get pushed to the back of the bus.